Sitting in a class, I look around, noticing that the majority of my peers are of a lighter complexion, making me stand out like a sore thumb. Walking through the halls of the academic building, I am surrounded by an abyss of white. I make note of the lack of color around me. After 4 long years of being a student at Brooks, this is a scene that is not unfamiliar to me. While this might be a scene that I often find myself partaking in, I still think, how did I get to this, and why are things like this? I often wonder what my high school experience and personality would look like had I not attended a majority white school. Compared to where I was 4 years ago, this is a drastic change, and it is something that I am reminded of every time I go home. All my life, I had attended public school until Brooks. Now, many of you may not know where I come from. I am a Hispanic girl from New York City. I am the oldest of 3 girls. Being the eldest, I always felt entitled to be right and in control of most situations, something that I am pretty sure most of my friends can attest to. Coming to a private boarding school was completely out of my comfort zone, yet I accepted and came here for reasons, looking back, I believe, may have been hasty, but in the end, has given me an experience I can never forget. I've gained perspective and was given a reality check about life. Getting wrapped up in the Brooks bubble is something that happens to all of us. Something that I have come to realize is that as much as the Brooks bubble exists, it is a representation of life outside of the gates of the Brooks School. For anyone with the same background or appearance as me, we have to work twice as hard to get to places that some take for granted. This is one of the things that Brooks unintentionally taught me: privilege. This is a word that evokes very strong emotions and different reactions for people. Some deny it while others accept it as something they did not choose to have. Now, privilege is something that does not only apply to race or ethnicity, it also applies to gender and socioeconomic status. In my opinion, the majority of white people don't think about being white on a daily basis, and that is a great privilege. They may struggle in their life, but being white will never be the reason for their struggle. My ethnicity is something that I am reminded of all the time. All I have to do is either look at my hair or at the color of my skin. Privilege is something that everyone at the Brooks School needs to come to terms with, because we all have some type of privilege, some more than others. I have the privilege of being a female of color who attends a private boarding school. I have the privilege of having an education, the privilege of having clean drinking water, and the privilege of having people who support me. Now, while I learned about the privilege others than I have, I could see how much privilege I did not have compared to others at Brooks. This was something that took time for me to become accustomed to. Another thing that Brooks gave me was the opportunity to learn and gain perspective about my position as a woman of color and how the way I move throughout the world is different than the majority of people around me. I realized that Brooks will look at me through a different lens. There are already aspects of my appearance that cause people to make preconceived notions about the type of person I am. Some of those may be right, some of those may be wrong, but they are never the whole picture. Brooks gave me the reality check about the unfortunate occurrences I will experience for the rest of my life. For one, people will never understand or completely accept my looks or appearance, a reflection of what is awaiting me once I graduate Brooks. Because of this, I learned of the social hierarchy that exists at Brooks and in the real world. Being on a campus that is majority white sometimes causes me to feel insecure and excluded because of how I look and act. While these instances have been few, this is an underlying feeling that with time faded. An instance with the girls' varsity hockey team my sophomore year is an example of this. As tradition follows, for the championship game, both varsity hockey teams get silly, funny haircuts or hairstyles. That year, the girls' varsity hockey team decided to get cornrows for a championship game. Cornrows are a type of braid that is an ancient traditional African style of hair grooming that women of color typically use to care for their hair. Going back to what happened that year, a senior captain on the team asked a girl of color who was not on her team her opinion on them getting cornrows. The girl said that she and other girls of color would not be comfortable with it and advised her to steer her team in a different direction. The team completely disregarded her advice and the feelings of some of the Brooks community members and went ahead to get the hairstyle. For those of you who did not know the whole story, you can see why most of the girls of color had an issue with this. Our main concern was not about the hairstyle itself, but the way they handled the situation and completely disregarded the feelings of a group of people on campus. When word got around, many stated that we were being extra, that we take everything so seriously. You guys get angry over nothing. You guys are overreacting. Statements that I would consider to be stereotyping a group of people. This was really one of the first moments where I saw the indifference towards opinions of people in the community. This instance made me question whether my opinion and I, as a person, was valued in this community. While some people still hold negative feelings towards this occurrence, I believe it was an eye-opener for me and the community. This year, USA Day was chosen as one of the days of Spirit Week. As you all probably know, a group of us, students of color, participated in a silent protest. We chose to dress in all black to show our solidarity for the Black and brown people on the Brooks campus and beyond. Our perspective on this country is different than the majority of people on this campus, and that isn't an issue because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. However, we should not be judged for ours. Instead of doing that, you should take an interest as to why we were protesting in the first place. We felt that the country we live in has not been doing its role in supporting us, people of color. From police brutality, inhumane immigration policies, and the way that the country views and treats people of color, overall, it is a time where tension is running high because of the president in power. It is the job of the people and of the public to change that, to better the situation. Now at Brooks, I do not think it reaches this level, but the basis of it can be seen here. There are not enough people stepping out of their comfort zone to ask questions that matter, to ask about something they may never understand, but are working to challenge or even change. Throughout my time at Brooks, there was never a time where I questioned where I stood in the social hierarchy that exists here. I don't want to make Brooks out to seem like a stereotypical high school where the jocks are the cool, stupid ones, and people who like school are nerds that have no social life. But there are certain aspects about our culture or social life that indicate that we do have some of these social standings or things that would be considered norms. Sports. This is something that is huge at Brooks. Now, I'm not the most athletic person, so coming to a school where the majority of people who played a sport seriously was intimidating because I could honestly care less. The only sport or art that I cared about was dance, something that seemed irrelevant at Brooks. I realized that these people, the ones who played sports, had their needs and goals catered to, while people who had an interest in the arts were sort of just hanging out in the background. It was not until recently that arts came off the back burner and became an important aspect of our community that is honored. This definitely affected the route that my Brooks experience took. In addition to that, gender also plays a role. To prove this, you just have to look at the amount of people who attend boys' games and girls' games. As a Hispanic girl, I see everything in color. This is not the case with everyone. The majority of people see things in black and white. This is something that I came to realize at Brooks. I realized that in my classes, I learned about the history of tension between the British and the people living in the colonies, the tension between Americans and Black or African American people. I learned so little about Dominican people in America or in the world. This can even be seen in current events. Almost everything concerning social issues has to do with either white or black people. Now, I'm not saying that issues involving these people are irrelevant, but they just seem to hold more attention than issues involving people like me, not exactly white and not exactly black. I have heard some people say that they do not see color. Some people say this with the good intention of trying to say that there is no difference between white and black people. Those two words exclude a large group of people, regardless of the assumptions that others make based on your appearance. It is not a polarization, but more of a spectrum. The reality of this is that there is a difference, and it has to be acknowledged. I think people need to see color. People need to acknowledge that our walks of life have been different because of the color of our skin. The things we have gone through, the experiences we have had, we have not had the same experiences as white people, and it would be a disservice to people of color to disregard and not acknowledge their struggles and fight for justice, something that people of color are still striving for. These experiences have shaped me into the person I am today, a young woman who believes in equality for all, a student who is concerned about her current society and is looking for a way to better it, a student who believes that education is the key to everything, which is why it is so prevalent that students have the same opportunities. While this is only a sneak peek of some of my experiences and aspirations, essentially my world, I hope that my perspective and experiences have shed some light on things that do not affect you or that you do not think about. I'm going to end with an exercise from Jane Elliott, an anti-racism activist and an educator who speaks to white citizens on receiving the same treatment as black citizens. It came from a video that my friend showed me, and I think it perfectly encapsulates some of the things I talk about in my speech. I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as a society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you as a white person would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in society, stand. Nobody here is standing. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you are so willing to accept it or allow it to happen for others. Thank you.